Hello, everyone. Our sincere apologies. We had some technical difficulties, so we're starting a few minutes late here. But welcome to Foundations in Circularity, the what, why, and how of a circular economy, hosted by W.i.R.E Manitoba chapter and presented by Tanis Ostermann, principal and founder of CanSustain. My name is Kimberly Lang, a proud member of Women in Renewable Energy and its W.i.R.E Manitoba chapter. I'm joined by another W.i.R.E Manitoba chapter facilitator and my dear friend Cassandra Siemens. We'll be your hosts for the next hour and work together to bring W.i.R.E events like these to Manitoba. Just letting everyone know in advance, the meeting is being recorded. All right, we'd like to start off by telling you a little bit about Women in Renewable Energy. W.i.R.E is a nonprofit organization, and our purpose is simple: to advance the role and recognition of women in the energy sector and support projects and initiatives that are women-led or that raise the quality of life for women around the globe by increasing awareness and accessibility. In pursuit of our mission, we offer a diverse range of programs designed for professionals and students of all genders. These include networking meetups, capacity building field trips, workshops, and speed mentoring sessions. In partnership with our partners and sponsors, we proudly present the W.i.R.E Awards program, where we recognize women in organizational excellence through several awards of distinction presented at various prestigious conferences and events around the world. To further support post-secondary students, we organize bursaries that enable them to attend industry conferences. We also offer a student ambassadorship program, providing students with the opportunity to represent and promote our organization within their academic institutions. W.i.R.E was launched in 2013 in Toronto. We have W.i.R.E Canada chapters in every province and the Yukon. And programming is open to all, includes workshops, field trips, outreach, recruitment, such as speed mentoring, speed interviewing, networking meetups, webinars, recognition through scholarships and internships, and Women of Distinction Awards. W.i.R.E spotlights illuminate the incredible contributions of women shaping the renewable energy sector. These features showcase diverse voices and career paths, highlighting the skills, accomplishments, and unique perspectives of women in our industry. Some of the W.i.R.E volunteers contribute by interviewing and writing about many amazing women and men in the energy sector. These articles often inspire others and helps to foster a diverse and inclusive community in clean energy. W.i.R.E at any given time may have multiple initiatives and projects that its volunteers are working on. W.i.R.E's Energize Equity campaign has two purposes. First, to shed light on the barriers faced by individuals, specifically women and underrepresented individuals working in the climate sector. And secondly, to advance the solutions required to overcome these barriers. While W.i.R.E's primary mission is centered on women, it is crucial to note that our doors are open to volunteers of all genders. Moreover, a significant portion of our programming is also open to men, emphasizing our commitment to inclusivity. Our programs not only impact women, but also men, highlighting the mutual influence we all have in our society. The progress of women invariably leads to the advancement of all. Everyone benefits when women succeed. This inclusive approach ensures that we all progress together. Although W.i.R.E is headquartered in Toronto, Canada, we're also an international NGO with several different chapters in different countries. Therefore, we like to use the terminology glocal, which means think global but act local. The right programming in Canada may not necessarily be the right programming for W.i.R.E UAE or W.i.R.E Africa. Therefore, we work hand in hand with our respective chapter leads and ensure that we bring in the right programming to that country. The W.i.R.E Board of Directors is made up of a group of incredible people, including Joanna Sawe, who has joined us today. The accolade of advisory committee is bestowed upon volunteers who have shown their dedication to W.i.R.E's mission with persistence and resilience and have given many hours of their time to support W.i.R.E's goals. WiRE's committees and chapters are made up of its leaders and volunteers. Each volunteer works closely with each other to execute comprehensive programming. Their combined efforts drive WiRE's smooth operation and progress. Volunteering with WiRE offers a unique opportunity to contribute to the sustainable energy transition. As a volunteer, you'll gain valuable insights into the renewable energy sector, connect with industry professionals, and play a role in empowering women in this field. Join us at WiRE and be part of this transformative journey. To volunteer, go to the website and click on the Volunteer with WiRE button in the top right corner and fill out the form. WiRE leverages LinkedIn as its primary platform to engage with the energy industry. Our newsletters hosted on LinkedIn serve as a conduit for professionals across the world. Join us on LinkedIn and be part of the conversation shaping the future of energy. Just a reminder, you can visit our website to see a full list of events. And we also have a listing of conferences on our website as well. WiRE is proud to have achieved observer status with the United Nations Conference of Parties, where many of its volunteers speak on behalf of raising the capacity, awareness, and quality of life for those who need it. Equal by 30 is a public commitment by public and private sector opportunities for women in the sector by 2030. Equal by 30 asks companies and governments to endorse principles, then take concrete action to accelerate the participation of women in the clean energy sector and lose the gender gap. WiRE also supports Leadership Accord on Gender Diversity. We are proud to be part of IRENA, the International Renewable Energy Agency. This coalition is all about pushing renewable energy technologies to the forefront, faster and wider. As a member, we at WiRE get to join in on the global conversations, sharing knowledge and best practices with the governmental and non-governmental stakeholders alike. Our aim is to boost the share of renewables in the global energy mix. All right, we'd like to thank our sponsors with a special thank you to our operational sponsors. WiRE also partners with other nonprofit organizations and governmental bodies. If you'd like to engage with WiRE on any of these projects, initiatives, or programming, please visit our website or connect with us on social media channels. And without further ado, we'll kick things off. So in today's virtual event, we will be hearing from distinguished speaker Tanis Ostermann with CanSustain. Thank you so much, Tanis, for taking the time out of your schedule to be with us today and share your expertise. Tanis Ostermann is principal and founder of CanSustain, a Manitoba firm specializing in environmental and sustainability management issues and solutions. She has worked in the fields of environmental and sustainability management system development and improvement for 25 years, having led the design, facilitation, and development of sustainability-focused projects. Tanis has experience in utility aerospace, clean tech, water management, academic, airport management, retail, agri-food, telecom, and municipal sectors. She's provided advice on the most pressing environmental and sustainability issues in the world today, including climate change, municipal planning, ESG, clean tech advancement, corporate sustainability governance, and circular economies. She's an environmental professional certified through the Canadian Environmental Certification Approvals Board. Ms. Ostermann has a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Toxicology and a Master of Environment, focusing on the use of existing, well-functioning management systems to enhance sustainability performance. Most recently, she has served on the Expert Advisory Committee under the Manitoba Climate and Green Plan as the Manitoba Representative to the Sustainable Development Advisory Council under the Canadian Minister of Environment and Climate Change Canada, and on the Canadian Standardization Advisory Committee on ESG and Sustainability of Standards Council of Canada. Please visit cansustain.ca for more information. Thank you very much, everyone, and I'll now turn it over to Tanis.
Thank you again to WiRE for allowing me the opportunity to speak. And I'm sorry that we can't meet in person. I rely heavily on body language when I speak. So I hope that this can flow just as well. And certainly raise your hand or put something in the chat if you're having a problem accessing the deck or hearing me. Thanks a lot. Let's get going. Tim gave you my bio, but more importantly than my bio is what CanSustain does, and that's right here. So we solve problems for people through 4 means: training and engagement, sustainability strategy and execution, program and project management, and we also provide advice and work through a chief sustainability officer component. That's going to be available in the recording. If you have any questions, certainly give me a call. So let's get into the good stuff. Circular economy, whether you've heard the word or not, the fundamentals and the foundational information required applies evenly across all sectors, all companies, no matter their size. And so that is where we are starting from today, because particularly for the renewable energy sector, of which we're all in this in some way, in some part of the value chain, we sort of take it for granted that everyone's going to be familiar with this. And what we have found is that's actually not the case. So we'll go through the foundations of what we all need to know. We'll talk about some of the strategies we can use to get there, and in your own shops, some of the first actions you can take. We absolutely have to start with what is it? So it's an economic model. It's a systems level economic model. You're never going to have circular economy at a specific sector level or a specific company level. It is system wide. It's focused on ensuring maximum value of materials and energy in the entire value chain. And this is done by reusing materials, using resources as effectively as possible, and eliminating waste. For our time together today, we are going to talk about materials only. The reason for that is that the circularity and maximizing the value of each electron used in energy is already well underway. As those of you in the sector know, we spend a lot of government time and money. We spend a lot of corporate time and money focusing on energy. We spend very little time talking about materials. So that's what we're going to talk about today. But everything we are talking about today could also apply to energy, as well as energy would have some of its own specific solutions. Sometimes you'll hear circularity versus circular. That's just reference to, it's basically a change in verb tense. So you're talking about the state of play or the type of practices that might be in an organization. But what does it also mean? It means we're focusing on the value of materials in the market and not just on the value of materials in production. This is an absolutely critical difference. So if you have, $1 million worth of silver in production, you are missing out by not counting the $2, $3, $4, $10 million worth of silver lost the world over in landfills or people's basements that's not being used, that's already encapsulated in equipment. So counting that value outside the production process is key to ensuring circularity. The 3 main principles, as simple as they may be, I guess the simplicity is the beauty of it. This is how we shape our thinking. This is how we adjust our culture, and this is how we reflect circularity in our strategies, is by accounting for these 3 principles: designing out waste and pollution, keeping products and materials in use, and regenerating natural systems. So we give this presentation, we CanSustain and myself specifically, give this presentation a lot and to different sectors. Most of this information remains the same, but based on what generation you're from, some of this is sort of like, I don't get it. This is what we did my whole life. And that is what I find is very interesting, because a lot of that generation is still the senior executives, a lot of the companies that we're dealing with, and they're still having a hard time translating that to what it looks like at a corporate level. So once we talk about what circularity and circular economy does mean, it's important to know what it does not mean, because if you don't have your speaking points correct, if we're not all on the same page, we're going to start going off in the wrong directions. So it's not just about recycling. I'm hopeful that you all know that recycling is the most materially inefficient and expensive thing you could possibly do with any material. So it's not just about that. It plays a role, but it's not just about that. And we are not just focusing on waste, as I will show later in the deck. There's different parts of your production system that we want to focus on. It doesn't mean we're waiting for government to do something. As I said at the beginning, this is a system-wide change in thinking and a system-wide, like economy system-wide model for the way we're going to conduct business and the way that we're going to consume products. So to just say we're going to wait for a policy, one single policy isn't going to do it. Everybody has to come to the table. It is not just one more tree hugger thing. There are companies, which again I will talk about as we go forward, for 100 years have been involved in circularity, not because it's been circularity, but because that has been the most cost-effective thing for them to do. That is what has resulted in high share prices. That is what has resulted in expansion, great wages, notoriety, legacy. So it's not just a tree hugger thing. And in today's world of increasing polarization surrounding environmental issues and particularly climate change, which personally is totally beyond me, the more we can do to focus on it not being a tree hugger thing, the better we are. And it's not that everybody has to do everything. I've never been in a shop where I can't find one thing that the shop can do to improve their circularity, but I've also never been in a shop where I see that everything has to change. Then we're going to move into what the linear economy is. So that is what we are in right now. I'm hopeful that you all know what this is, but in case this is new language for you, linear meaning straight. This is how we consume products now. We identify a need, we design something, we buy the materials that we need, we manufacture, we deliver, then consume and dispose. In a circular economy, we're taking the same elements and we're just adding a whole bunch of loops. So nothing significantly changes with the elements of the value chain. It's just that they become connected differently. And the idea is the smaller the loop, the more value we are extracting from the material. And the value proposition, you're going to have to, hopefully after this, you're going to go and talk to people and explain how fantastic this concept is, and you're going to try and integrate it into your organizations. You have to know what it is that you're trying to sell. So why do we get excited about it? This is how we meet targets. For any organization that has any biophysical target, so cutting down on emissions, increasing water efficiency, reducing waste, all of these targets without exception are being met through circular practices. Just because we don't call them that, but that's what it is. They are being met through circular practices. It applies to any organization of any size in any sector, profit, nonprofit, government, it doesn't matter. So unlike a lot of the other problems society has had to solve or changes in business that we've had to adopt over the last century, this one, we are actually all speaking the same language. Everyone's interested. Everyone hates waste. There is not one person that says, could you please add more packaging to my product? Or could you please raise my taxes to pay for more municipal landfill? Everyone hates waste. So for as much as circularity is about more than waste, the waste is the hook to get them in. Governments are interested. And if we had 4 hours to discuss this, I could talk to you about all the fantastic policies that are being enacted, not just in Canada, but in the US, and that are already developed in Europe. But they are very interested in this because it's tangible and it can be targeted to people who are causing the biggest problem. And it increases material and supply chain resiliency. This was noticed during and post-pandemic. While the supply chain disruptions weren't because of a lack of circularity, when companies and distributors put more circular loops and more exchanges into their supply chain, they became more resilient. So there's why we care, and then why is it better? We're moving from value add to value maintained. This takes a lot of pressure off your legacy companies. Historically, we're always talking about how do we add more, and now we're going, okay, this material is out in the marketplace. Just because we don't have access to it, it doesn't mean we can't support the maintenance of that value outside of our four walls. It keeps things in play for longer. Every time you have a loop, you get more information. So a loop means there's touch points, and the closer those touch points are to the company that originated that material, or to the person designing the material, the more information that they get about how it was used, where it was used, how long it lasted, what the consumers actually want. And you very rarely can deliberately set up a customer profile or a customer management system that will get you as much information as a material management program that hits the entire value chain. The value of products and the impacts of them are more evenly distributed. I quickly referenced what municipalities have to go through for landfill expenditures. Municipalities across the country are the ones that have to deal with this waste, and nobody pays them to do that. Like, that's just resident taxes. There's no multinational company, particularly the ones responsible for 80% of the products. Nobody comes in and says, hey, you know what? I recognize most of these waste products are ours, and I'm going to pay for this landfill. Nobody does that. And these RMs, these municipalities are suffering. So if the more circular we can become, the more evenly distributed those impacts and then the value becomes. So what's the big deal? So we talk a lot about energy and greenhouse gas emissions, but look at that split. Just over half are attributed to energy and production. That means just under half are associated with products. Now, in your day-to-day lives and the way targets are set and policy, do you think half of that attention is given to materials? If you are on this call and you can say yes, then you do not live in Canada or the US. You might live in Europe. Maybe you live in Africa. But for the most part, particularly North America and South America, we don't talk products and materials as much, even though almost half of the greenhouse gas emissions that we're trying to deal with are coming from products and materials. The global economy is currently 7.2% circular, and that's from 2023. That is down from about 9.5% in about 2021 or maybe 2020. So what that means is there's only 7.2% of materials and energy that's actually going back into production. In other words, over 92% of materials and energy just go into oblivion or a landfill or present toxic molecules into a waterway. 92%. That is a lot of wasted stuff that we could monetize. And could we ever monetize it? So the circular economy is estimated to be a $4.5 trillion opportunity, most of that being the technologies and the access to that 93% or 92.5% of the materials and energy that is currently, somebody decided somewhere it's wasted and we're not going to use it anymore. So there's your value prop. Now, to me, all that stuff is interesting, but the most interesting part is how we make this work inside of a company, because it is, again, in my opinion, totally simple, way more simple than a lot of the other stuff that we've been trying to do, particularly surrounding energy. There are 5 primary business models related to circular economy, and very rarely will you see just one element in an organization. There is overlap, but for the purposes of discussion, we're going to talk about them separately. That is the circular supply chain, resource recovery and recycling, product life extension, sharing platforms, and XaaS, so product or performance as a service. The next couple of slides, we're just going to have a couple of words on each of these business models. I know I am going really fast. I'm trying to respect your time. So please, if you have questions or need clarification, make a note of them or add them to the chat, and we will try to get to them at the end before our session is over. So a circular supply chain. This is a system, and the word system is important here, where products, materials, and resources are produced, designed, used, and repurposed in a continuous cycle. So that circular supply chain could be your own. So I produce a widget and then I track that widget to the end. When somebody else tells me they don't need the widget anymore, I go get it or get it sent back to me, and I break it down and reintegrate it into the production process. More likely, it's combinations of non-competitive, sometimes even competitive sectors, neighboring companies, even countries. We produce this much excess of whatever, I need extra whatever, and that becomes your circular supply chain. So my apologies. So one of the things that, some of the things that we can do with respect to a circular supply chain, it would look like sustainable sourcing and procurement, incorporating circular product design, reverse logistics, so instituting take-back programs for not just waste, but for discarded or unused products, and remanufacturing and refurbishing. I mentioned this at the start of the presentation. If you are based here in Manitoba, while I present this, we have two large enterprises here whose entire business model is based on remanufacturing, and they are at the top of their game. So one would be Standard Aero. Their whole model is we're going to take aerospace engines that are like on the verge of collapse. they need to be reworked, and we take them in-house and we make them better and release them in better condition than brand new. The other one is a Caterpillar remanufacturing plant here in Manitoba. So it's not new. This is an old process, and we just haven't got our heads around the fact that we can create new entities using this process. For resource recovery and recycling, this is the process of collecting, reusing, or recycling valuable materials or energy from waste streams. So no doubt you can probably see the overlap with the circular supply chain, which I covered in the last slide. The stuff that you're going to have to get involved with when you're talking about this business model is waste audits, collection and sorting of wastes, reuse and recycling of products and materials, and modifying your material specifications. That bottom one is a big one. Most manufacturers of products have what's called original manufacturers. So they're giving you the instructions, they're giving you the manufacturers above us, they're giving you specifications on your raw materials, like aluminum. And they might say, must use virgin aluminum. But that specification might be 60 years old, 65 years old, when the technology for verifying the integrity of reused or otherwise recovered aluminum might not exist. So going down the rabbit hole of trying to modify those material specifications may be challenging, but completely worthwhile. Product life extension. These are the processes that prolong the period of usefulness of products. So what you would see is design for durability, providing maintenance services, remanufacturing and refurbishing. We've already touched on that. Instruction manuals for repair and product upgrades. So two specific examples. One was in the media last year, one was in the media last week or the week before. Manuals for repair. IKEA committed to providing a manual for every single product that could be broken down into its, that could break. It's not just a molded plastic or something like that. Provided an instruction manual for everything so that you can go online and you can figure out how to fix your IKEA, whatever it is. On the product upgrades and also somewhat on the design for durability, Apple recently lost I don't know if it was a lawsuit or an appeal or some sort of request, very expensive request. They've been being pushed to do something about the obsolescence that's ingrained in their hardware. And so they lost that appeal with the US government. And so now they are starting a process where your Apple products could be fixed by the modular design or pieces of old versions of your app of other Apple devices. So as in my iPhone 8 bits that are functional, I can use them with an instruction manual that says, and then repair my newest Apple phone. So I'm sure you can appreciate that these large companies don't like this approach. This product life extension is one of the hardest things to introduce into an enterprise because it incorrectly implies that you're going to lose money. It implies the only way to make money is on the volume of sales. So this is where we're stuck in that mindset of value in production instead of value in the market. So Apple, John Deere, Samsung, GE, they've all gone to the mat to try and stop these product life extension regulations and policies from coming into place. But the good news is, for the most part, governments are saying, no, sorry, we're done. You do have to give us consumers opportunities to prolong the life of the product we've already purchased. A sharing platform. So that is forming a partnership between companies to share resources, such as materials, equipment, or work sites. In this case, platform does not mean a digital platform, but it could mean a digital platform. What that can look like, we are creating partnerships with companies that say need similar equipment and tools. So if you need a forklift to move pallets into your shop, but that's only once every 6 weeks, what's it doing from weeks 1 to 5 if the neighbor is needing a forklift every day for their shipments? So can you share those equipment? co-locating with organizations to share warehouse space and office space. We saw this a little bit with return to work after the pandemic. There's a lot of office space sharing now, but warehouse space sharing has actually been a thing for quite a while, but now it's trying to optimize it. Also collaborative research and development. So in pre-competitive or even non-competing sectors, if the R&D interests are the same, collaborating on that partnership distributes the risk a little bit more and makes it more appealing. And our last one, product and performance as a service. So this is accessing, the access and the performance are offered to a customer, but without the option of ownership. As in, we guarantee access to a piece of equipment or a product when needed without offering ownership. So perfect example, I actually needed a jackhammer. I don't own a jackhammer. I've used one once. And when I say I've used one once, I don't use one. Someone in my house uses one, and we will probably never need it again. So we go to Home Depot and we rent a jackhammer. That is the consumer home maintenance version of product or performance as a service. Or you could also offer a subscription service to a platform and guarantee ongoing performance and upgrades. So as an example, industrial compressors. You don't ever own the compressor for some companies. They just come in, they put you on a maintenance schedule, and they just make sure you have the function of a compressor uninterrupted, high quality whenever you need it. But you don't ever own that asset. Let's move on. So strategies for implementing these practices. So just to recap, we've spent a few minutes talking about the foundations of circularity and what it is. And then we talked about why we get excited and the value proposition. We talked about the 5 business models. And now here are some strategies for implementing those practices. Direct and supporting actions. So in operations, so I've divided these by the normal functional areas of a shop. Waste marketing, waste being in quotes. What I don't need could be functional and valuable to somebody else. Make sure it's out there so people know about it. Spares and alternatives optimization. Can you bring in spares that serve multiple purposes? Can you bring in modularity? Customer engagement, so that you can figure out if your products need to be redesigned to prolong the life. Your sourcing and procurement function. Make sure you've got your procurement specs up to date. That is one of the absolute cheapest, most effective things a company can do, any kind of company. You own those specifications. You make the decisions on how you select your suppliers. Make it in, put it in black and white, put it in writing. Evaluate your suppliers. Ask your suppliers if they have any alternatives and substitutions. They are always going to have things that their own suppliers and their own manufacturers want to try, that they want to get out onto the marketplace. Most of them, with one question, could point you in the direction of alternatives. Product and material traceability. If you can track your material throughout the entire value chain, it becomes a lot easier to start to implement some of these practices. And also seeking out performance of product as a service. So you don't need to buy that forklift. Find a supplier who can just let you use it when you need to use it. Under strategy and culture, have a material flow and use target alongside every single corporate energy and emission target in your organizational strategic plan. That step alone would filter down to the rest of the organization and send a signal that we are talking about the other almost half of the sources of greenhouse gases. You could consider changing your business model or adapting one of your business models to incorporate the 5 that we've discussed, and get yourself an executive champion. It comes down to that tone at the top. If there's an executive champion that says this is important, we're going to figure it out. Partnerships. This is a really good way to go. This is a systems level solution. Supplier partnerships. I can't stress this enough. Suppliers want your business. They will fulfill your procurement specifications if you let them know what they are. They will try and find alternatives for you, pilot projects for you. You just have to let them know. Sector alignments and buying groups. So as an example, in a non-competitive capacity, if everybody in the business of selling couches worked together to get the most valuable and efficient procurement process for their fabric, then they have more leverage. And also a playground. So this is a little bit different than R&D. This is having a communal, sometimes physical, sometimes digital space where multiple companies can come in and say, you know what, I want to try this kind of material. And, oh, I want to try that kind of material too. You could be trying them for two different reasons, but you've now reduced the risk and cost of trying that. So sort of in the R&D space, but we call it a playground. Okay, so your enablers and challenges. There's certain things that you have to have, and there's certain things that are going to stand in your way. These are your enablers, and in the interest of time, I'm not going to read them to you. You will have them in the recording when you go back if this is of interest to you, but I will go through a quick assessment. These enablers are standard across all sectors. Like this doesn't change the size of your company or what space it's operating in. But what you want to do is identify which one of these enablers is within your sphere of influence. So super simple. We just do it through a series of different thickness of arrows. So we can see, okay, this one we don't have influence over, this one we do. For most individual organizations, they will not have significant influence over policy and regulation. So we cross that out. Most of them will not have influence over public materials and waste management infrastructure. Like most companies aren't going to put in their own landfill or be able to affect the number of landfills or how they're built. But same thing with customer pull. Most companies don't have a lot of influence over that. I mean, you can try, but it's the harder thing to do. But things like networks, your access to circular materials, those are all in your realm of control to some degree. Access to capital, education, and funding. And for most companies, making sure your own workforce and supply chain is aware of what you want and what the potential is, and developing a network to help you get what you want, that is fully within your control. But we can't have enablers without things that stand in our way. It's important to know what those are. New versus anything. This is a society-wide culture shift that has to happen. We've done it to ourselves. We have, in the interest of shareholder value, in the interest of expansion, market share, we have told people collectively, no, don't reuse it. There's something wrong if you reuse it. And we have to get past that. Proving profitability or low cost. Circular solutions are generally always profitable, but proving it becomes difficult because we're seeking out data that doesn't yet exist, which goes into the next challenge. There's a lot of missing data for executives to start making these decisions. Sometimes you have to be satisfied making a qualitative assessment and just deciding that there's very little risk to that decision, or you go through a pilot program to cultivate your own data. Inertia. An example of this is you've got a privately held company, founder CEO after 40 years at the helm, doing really well. They're looking to retire or sell or go public. They are not going to change a thing. That is inertia. The scale. If you are producing something that requires a kilogram of tin, but the only thing that you can access is a ton of tin, it makes it hard to scale appropriately, but the inverse is always true. If you need a ton of tin to do your job and you're only able to access diffuse sources of a kilogram of tin here and a gram of tin there, it makes it very difficult to scale. The distance between the materials that you actually need and where you need to use them, that is increasingly a problem. We saw that with the pandemic. Everybody relies on something across the ocean. That makes it very, very, very hard to institute small circular loops in material management. And infrastructure. So something like digital product traceability that does require physical and digital infrastructure. Most of it's invented already, but it's not ubiquitous across all industries. And the companies and people who find these solutions, I said at the onset, we've got a $4.5 trillion opportunity. The companies and people who can find solutions to this will be the ones to capture that value. So for the renewable energy sector, I can't see exactly who's represented on this call, but presumably we all have a role to play in this sector. Circular design or demand of infrastructure and components. That's huge. The fastest growing waste stream, which I'm sure that you know, fastest growing waste stream is the end of life materials from solar and wind energy sources. Fastest growing and also the most complex and some of the most toxic. Collaboration across industries to share knowledge and resources. That's your network strength. Community engagement and influence, making sure that the communities that you deal in understand what you want. And the other big one is shareholder engagement. If any of you are in a publicly traded company or are in a company thinking of going public, easier before you go public, but also can be done in a public company. There is space to meet shareholder expectations and see increased shareholder share value, while still implementing these kind of practices. It's tricky, but it can be done. But shareholder engagement is key with that. So okay, we got just a few minutes left for those of you that have to drop off. The critical actions that you can take tomorrow, today, right after this call. You can start building awareness. You can identify an internal champion, ideally an executive champion, but that doesn't always work, to raise awareness about circular opportunities internally and with the community. And that can be done by anybody. Measurement and categorization. This is where all the missing data comes to a head. Either the stuff that you realize, oh my God, we need a tool to track this, or hey, look how ubiquitous this data is and we just never knew about it. So all the materials coming in and all waste, that's an air quote waste, and products going out. So who would be involved in that? That's your sustainability team, your sourcing procurement team, logistics, production managers, line staff, finance. Finance is getting more and more involved because of ESG requirements that require the monetization and accounting of greenhouse gas emissions. And as I said, 45% of that's associated with your materials. So finance does tend to have part of that pretty well in line now. Consider circular business models. So we talked about the 5 models, a paper exercise. What could we do with each of these models? A little bit of each, more of one, none. Very, very rarely would it be none. But what can we do? And so you want to involve your ops manager, R&D, product design and engineering, your procurement team, or your executive, I should say. There is a project that's going on in Manitoba and Saskatchewan. I'm not going to go through it because you can read it. And I do want to get to any questions. That is Foundations in Circularity in like 37 minutes, 32 minutes. This is a lot of material to digest in such a short period of time. I would encourage you, you can either give me a call or talk to Kim. She can connect us, or take a look at the recording at your own speed, and think about how this can be adopted into your organization. I've never, ever, ever come across an organization where there isn't some element that we can do this and do it cost effectively and without rocking the rest of the boat.
Tanis, I actually had a question, if that's okay.
Sure. Yes, of course.
First of all, I can't believe that over 92% of materials and energy are wasted.
Yep.
That's incredibly unfortunate number.
Yes. You can say it's disgusting.
Yeah. When you talked about product life extension, that really rang with me, because I thought everything that I had when I was growing up years ago seemed to never go away. Like it just lasted forever. And now you have a phone for a year, right?
Yeah.
So I was thinking, you mentioned the government is stepping in to help prolong the life of a product. What are some of the things that governments are doing?
So the typical name.
Yeah, it's good.
Did I hear something? Oh, the typical name for this class of policy and regulations is called extended producer responsibility. So sometimes that reveals itself in waste management, like a take back program. Like, the thing I hate the most are grocery plastic clamshells. I'm 47 years old, and I know that for most of my life, those clamshells did not exist, and I still ate strawberries and they were fun. So that's a new thing, or relatively new thing. But and this is not happening, it's just an example, but there could be regulation that says the producer of those clamshells, their responsibility is extended by taking back the clamshells and or otherwise finding a suitable means of managing them. So extended producer responsibility. But there is also the other part of that is making sure that that waste is prevented completely by providing repair, by providing extra, making sure parts are available. That's the other one. Lots of these companies, I didn't realize that, the tech companies, they'll say, oh, that you can repair this, but they don't manufacture, supply, or spec any parts for you to do it. So even if you took your phone or your PS3 or your whatever to a shop, they could tear it all apart, but there's absolutely nothing that they can do to it. And, making sure your warranty isn't void if you start messing around trying to fix something. And a lot of the reason these companies don't like it now is not just because the implied reduction in volume of sales, but because they're already using all this stuff to track data, and they don't want that data in the hands of anybody else. So John Deere, prime example. It's all companies. I'll use John Deere. They collect a lot of crop and ag data through the use of their equipment. They don't want farmers being able to access those black boxes with that data in it, because that becomes John Deere's IP. So there are some challenges, but the governments seem to be seeing through it. It's just that the governments generally don't have the budgets that these larger companies have to contest it.
Okay, well, Tanis, thank you so much. I know that we started a few minutes late there, so thank you for giving us the condensed version.
Oh,
Um,
that's okay.
that was very interesting, and we do have the recording to share. And everyone, Tanis has her contact information on the slide, so please reach out if you have questions. And also, if there's any questions about WiRE, feel free to reach out to us as well. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone for hanging in there during the beginning, and thank you very much for attending today.
Thanks, everyone. Ciao.